Now, there has been a lot of breaking news recently in regards to what's been going on in politics, and I do try my best to, stay on those sort of topics, talk about the serious stuff that's going on. But honestly, I feel like there's just been so much like bad shit going on, and a lot of it I feel like is stuff that I don't really have that much of like an insighted opinion on in terms of like, the Zelensky shit with Trump that's been going on recently. And I feel like a lot of stuff that I've already said before, or like other people have said in a better way. So, you know what? Let's just talk about some fucking nonsense that doesn't even really matter, but some just cringe shit that I have found over the last few weeks. Starting off with a creator known as AndyPants Gaming. I saw Hassan react to him, and apparently this is a guy that Asmongold has also been reacting to, and he's essentially just one of those like anti-woke gamers, the anti-DEI whatever. Games are too woke now. It's just a bunch of like the buzzwords, the buzzword gamers, as I like to call them. But his whole thing, this guy, AndyPants, his whole thing is just about talking about how games aren't manly anymore. Like, did Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 go woke? 2005 military games versus 2025 military games. And he's like showing Fortnite. Is Fortnite Fortnite's not even a military game. He puts like the R word in his thumbnails. What the fuck? Dragon Age Field Guard's entire groomer staff laid off? Okay, he's like one of those groomer means gay shit. I don't know. Gay and R-worded Xbox Game Pass games. It's shit like that. It's just weird anti-woke shit that just comes off as insanely fucking stupid. But let's take a look at some of these videos just to show you how fucking insane this guy is.
Today, I want to talk about the great pussification.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the title of this video is The Pussification of Video Games. Like, this guy is not a serious person. There's no way that he is. I've heard some people be like, oh, this obviously has to be like a grift or something. I don't think that it is. I think this guy is just literally so fucking dumb. Or he's just a grifter, and he's just saying a bunch of buzzwords to like get a bunch of dumbasses in a frenzy.
Of video games that has happened the past 20 years. Is it a soy-based diet doing this? Is it the rise of OnlyFans simping doing this? If you have recently had the thought, I wonder what new pumpkin-flavored items Trader Joe's has, be careful, my brother in Christ, you might be gay now. But if there's one...
Look, I've said this before, I'm a pansexual man. I'm attracted to every gender. I've never thought that. Does that mean I'm not truly gay? Does that mean I don't truly like guys because I never wondered what pumpkin items Trader Joe sells?
thing that is straight as hell, it's the rock-solid video games of the 2000s. Your Gears of War.
Didn't they literally just remake this game? Like Dead Space?
Your Medals of Honor. Your Chronicles of Riddick's. These games were masculine as hell, and we want them back, and we're boycotting video games until they come back. I recently saw this disappointing photo of Phil Spencer being pushed out of the photo by two domineering girl bosses.
Wait, he's being pushed out? Is this the guy he's referring to? Because if so, he's literally right here. He's not being pushed
who
out.
are probably unfulfilled because they're trying to succeed in the corporate world instead of having children at home like God designed them to.
Oh my god.
And don't you love Phil's cute little Doom shirt? Like, hey guys, I'm still one of the bros, right? Look, like, we can still hang, right?
He's wearing a Doom the Dark Ages shirt. Like, that's kind of funny, is that he's talking about like how all these games are not masculine anymore. Doom Dark Ages is still coming out. Have you seen the trailer for that? Like, how can you look at that trailer for the new Doom, or the Dooms that have came out recently and been like, this isn't manly?
Nah, Phil, you're trash. You got cucked, dude. You're useless. So I have found that there are still people out there who deny the simple fact that games have gone woke, homo, and gay in 2024. So in this video, I'm going to literally prove it to you using science. What we will do is read the back
Yeah, this guy seems like a very scientific mind.
of the box description of 6 random games from 2024.
This is the science that he's using, is rating back of the box. That's your science. And that's your science. It's reading game descriptions.
And then we will read the back of the box descriptions of 6 random games from the 2000s.
I'm sure these will be totally random and not all like hand-picked.
And if what I'm saying is true, we should notice a...
Hold on. Okay. So I guess these are the games that he is picking. Look how... Notice how none of these games that he has picked here for 2024 are like big titles. Like for the 2000s, he picked Deus Ex Machina, which is like Deus Ex Human Revolution, which is honestly kind of funny, claiming that this is a non-woke game when the whole thing about it is that I believe it's supposed to like, take place in a capitalist dystopia. They got Brothers in Arms, Chronicles of Riddick, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Dark Sector. Like he obviously picked a bunch of games that like fit into a certain drama, like a certain genre. And he just picked a bunch of like random like indie games, not even like the most popular. Just a bunch of like random indie games that like nobody's ever heard of. Like yeah, I bet there's plenty of games that are similar to this that came out in 2002, but you handfully picked a bunch of games that are like supposed to who gives a shit? It's very obvious that this is supposed to be based and not at all random.
Feminization, a pussification, a gayification of video games that has happened the past 20 years. And before you bring up that video games don't have boxes anymore in 2024, calm your tits, you know what I mean. So to find 6 modern games, I didn't have to look very far. I literally just went to the front page of Xbox Game Pass and found these games. This is clearly what Phil and his team of homos actually expects us men to play. Here they are: Creatures of Ava, Dungeons of...
Like, these are clearly just games that they push out there. Like, I don't know if this is true, like, these are the front page games. But it's pretty obvious that they're just putting them out there because they want to give these indie games, like, some love instead of just pushing them to the back and no one to see them. Like, they just want to highlight games that people might not be aware of. But that doesn't mean that fucking... But, like, these aren't the top games. Like, yeah, you know, gaming console... Like, gaming companies will sometimes push out indie games for people to buy, but these aren't like the top like pushed games. These aren't the top selling games. They're not the biggest games of 2024. Like, I don't understand what this logic is supposed to be. It's just fucking stupid.
Hinterberg, Flintlock Siege of Dawn, Flock, Magical Delicacy, and Chia. Now you might say, oh, Andrew, you're specifically picking out games aimed at children. No, dude, I'm literally just going to the front page of Game Pass, and these are 6 games featured on the front page of Game Pass.
They're recently added. No, these are just games that just recently came out. They're not supposed to be like... It's not like they're under the category of like the biggest games that came out. Literally right under it is like a Ubisoft ad for Valhalla and Far Cry 6. No, these are just games that just recently came out, so they're going to be in a recently added section. This is so fucking stupid.
Also, side note, isn't it weird that these pedo developers are always making games aimed at kids?
Jesus Christ. It literally just is like, oh, you're gay. That means you're a groomer shit.
It's a whole other thing I'm not going to get into right now. All right, so what games from the 2000s should we compare these with?
Also, like, even if he isn't saying that, like, oh, gay means groomer, like, there's been, like, games made for kids have always existed. Like, even in the 2000s, there were games that I played when I was a kid in the 2000s that were specifically made for kids. I played a Power Rangers side-scroller game growing up. I played fucking, like, Super Mario. Do you not think that's like supposed to be targeted for kids even when that was first created? If you don't, then you're fucking stupid. Video games for the most part have always tried to cater to kids, but while the industry evolved, they found out like, oh, not only kids play video games, we can create these more mature video games. It's so fucking stupid. Yeah, Tetris was very hardcore. Tetris was so hardcore before they pussied it up.
These are 6 kind of random games that I just happened to pull off the shelf without thinking too much about it.
Also, just a very weird obsession with what's manly and what's not. Like, dude, are you gay? You seem to really love manly shit. That's gay as shit.
They are Brothers in Arms, Road to Hill 30, Ride to Hell Retribution, Modern Warfare 2, Dark Sector, Deus Ex Human Revolution, Chronicles of Riddick, Assault on Dark Athena. And again, all I'm going to do here is read the descriptions and we will compare. 2024 Creatures of Ava. Let your empathy guide you as you play an exciting action adventure creature saver game. Understand and tame the creatures of Ava and let them lead you through a variety of ecosystems, all in the hopes of saving the planet from a life consuming infection. I also.
Yeah, this just seems like a kid's indie game. And you're comparing this to Call of Duty. Yeah, they're gonna be different. Also, like, what's wrong with empathy? Like, is empathy gay? Guys, empathy is gay now. You can't have empathy. That means you like dick.
Found out that the two main characters of this game are, of course, homosexual black women because, 2024. Let your empathy guide you? Like, what the hell? I don't.
Yeah, that, you know what makes sense for, like, a game that's clearly just supposed to be like a Pokemon indie game, like a creature saver game? A big burly dude with a bunch of guns on him.
I don't play video games to let my empathy guide me in.
I don't have empathy.
Ooh, I want to be gay and collect creatures and like this game.
Empathy is gay.
Just sounds retarded. Let's be honest. So now let's compare this to the game from 20 years ago, 2005. Brothers in Arms.
It's like, this is like comparing foods and then complaining when like a slice of pizza doesn't taste like a salad. Like, it's obviously supposed to be two different things, but like, you're just fucking complaining to complain. You're just showing that you're a dumbass. Like, there's plenty of war games now. Like, you could compare like these 2000s war games to, like, Doom or the new Call of Duties, but he won't, because then he would actually have to look at what's actually wrong with the gaming industry nowadays, which is like microtransactions, which is like yearly releases of popular franchises that don't really show that much difference in quality, because it's just like lazy put together shit that most creators just force the people behind them to just churn out on a yearly basis so they can make a profit, while their the fan base will complain about it, but they'll still eat it up anyways. Like, there's actual stuff that you can complain about the gaming industry in modern times. The least of it is there's gay shit now. Like, that's not at all. Like, there's definitely performative wokeness in some media, not just in video games, but acting as if that's the big problem. Like, when Suicide Squad was coming out, there were people complaining that the biggest issue with the game was that there was like a trans flag or some shit, and then trying to justify like being anti-trans because the game was dog shit. Like, dude, just shut the fuck up. Like, it's so fucking idiotic to make it about this stuff. This guy is just clearly pushing an agenda while trying to seem smart, but he just comes off as a dumbass.
To Hill 30, the back of the box says this: they would sacrifice everything except each other. Like, damn, dude, just grabs you by the balls. Like, that is the back.
Guys, that's probably the gayest shit I've ever heard. He's like, this game just grabs me by the balls. I just love how it manhandles my balls.
Back of a box. I'm like, okay,
I think we should be more worried about you turning people gay with how much you like to talk about manly shit and balls. And being grabbed by them.
That is a dope intro for a back of the box. It goes on the night before D.
Oh yeah, this is what I judge video games based off of, whether they have a cool description or not. Whether the back of the box description is dope.
Yeah, 1944. The paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division are dropped into Normandy and scattered behind enemy lines. As Sergeant Matt Baker, lead your squad through 8 harrowing days that will define history and unite you forever as brothers in arms. Like, bro, like the balls of these games description. I have to go play this game now. See, this is what's honestly missing from the 2024 homo trash. Like, nothing is good anymore. Nothing grabs us. This is why video games profits are down. I don't even think that's true. I think profits are still up as a whole. Like, they're still making a bunch of money. Like, I think that's also the thing with a lot of these like anti-woke creators. Like, they constantly have to convince themselves like that these companies are not making enough money, but they can't actually do the research to prove that they are wrong.
The problem with the gaming industry is that they do make a lot of money, but instead of actually like spending that money on carefully, wisely using the time to allow their developers to make good games, they instead lay off a bunch of people, give them very strict timelines to create a certain game, which, does end up with a lot of games just being shit. And instead of actually trying to improve on that system, they just rake in the dollars and continue that process. But yeah, they're definitely turning a profit. It's just that that profit doesn't really go like, it just furthers the actual problems of the gaming industry instead of the ones that you think is going on. It's just so fucking stupid.
Completely quit catering to their base market of men.
Video game makers quit catering to the people who actually play video games. That's also a stupid thing. Like, there's a bunch of people who actually play video games. In all honesty, like, do these guys even play video games anymore? I just feel like most of their time is just spent complaining about video games. Like, when was the last time Asmongold has actually played a video game?
Next game, 2024 Dungeons of Hinterberg. Armed with a sword and a tourist guide, explore the beautiful alpine village of Hinterberg and uncover the magic hidden within its dungeons. Master magic, solve puzzles, slay
Why is he doing like this? Weirdly enough, this just sounds like what he actually probably sounds like. He just sounds like a fucking dork, but he's trying to make it be like, this is gay. This is a gay voice. But again, just going into, this is obviously supposed to be a kid's game.
monsters. All this and more awaits you in Hinterberg. Like, okay, I like swords, but based
Also,
on
this game looks cool. Like, I like the art style and shit like that. Like, I'm gonna be honest, if you look at this shit and be like, oh, this is lame and gay, that just says a lot about you. That you're probably like boring as fuck and don't actually have like great taste in anything.
game's art style, I know within the first 5 minutes, we're meeting somebody's non-binary boyfriend. Like, nah, dude, I'm good. Now compare this with the 2013 masterpiece, Ride to Hell Retribution. Back of the box says this: 2 fists, 2 wheels, no rules. Now, it's a little cheesy, but I already know one thing. This game has balls, but it gets better.
He's so obsessed with balls.
Lone Rider Jake Conway locked in.
Guys, I'm not gay. I just really like balls. I just want these games to grab me by the balls and like caress them and, just really handle them softly.
Battle to the death against a ruthless gang of bikers called the Devil's Hand. Okay, and you got a hot chick on the back. Like, dude, I'm in. I want to play this game now. These 2024 games will be 3 sentences long and still can't grab my attention. And then with like one word, this 2013 game completely has me by the balls. Like, guys, it kind of makes me sad that America actually used to export like
This wasn't even that long ago, really.
cool stuff to the world, and now it's just homo woke garbage that America.
I like that he can't really even talk about a lot of like the recent games, like fucking what's Black Myth's Wukong. Like, that was a game that everyone talked about and loved recently that came out. Honestly, from what I saw, I'm not that big of a fan of it. I probably wouldn't really give it a shot. But like, that's like, is he actually gonna comment on like actual recent games that came out, like the big ones, or is he just gonna talk about a bunch of like indie games? Like, I actually want to see if he like brings any like big games that came out recently up, or if he's just gonna talk about just a bunch of shit that came out in the 2000s and then just a bunch of like indie games that came out this year, like whatever. Like, these are obviously supposed to be like kid games. I don't know. It just seems like he doesn't really, at least from what I see, he doesn't like show anything from like, actual like big modern games. It's just like, it's him just going down his nostalgia route and, talking about balls. He's not gay though, guys. This is what this dude looks like. This picture on the right. Does this guy actually look like he's that much of like a man's man? Like, how can you look like this? And it's same with Asmongold too. Or it's just a bunch of these guys who like love to talk about how, they just want their stuff to be manly and how they just don't want it to be gay and shit like that. And they just never look like a manly man guy. They just look like a bunch of losers. Like, they try to act like they're one, like, it feels like they're trying to like cosplay as like, a gym bro or a frat boy in this sense. But it's like, no, you're just a loser. And look, I like video games too. I'm not like a frat boy or shit like that. But like, I'm aware of how I look and how I present. I'm not trying to cosplay as like a tough guy, but these guys are. while they sit behind their desk complaining about video games. It's so fucking lame. Now let's get into this video. This was another one that I saw, and I believe I saw Hassan talk about this one, and there is a part of it I do want to talk about, but there's a certain franchise that he talks about that I want to talk about as well in this video.
Does anybody else feel like masculinity has slowly been drained from modern video games? I was looking
It
at
seems like that's all you talk about, so I don't know why you constantly bring up this question.
recent staff photos of Ubisoft and Halo Infinite developers, and it's all starting to make sense.
Also, this is funny because, like, you know, queer and female, people working in the video game industry is nothing new. So, like, trying to make this a big thing of, like, look at all these women working in the video game industry, like, that's always been the case.
It's a bunch of fat white liberal women. And white liberal women have no interest in masculine, manly, male characters. They wouldn't even know how to write one if they tried.
It's also funny how, like, when it comes to a lot of these, like, alpha male red pill guys, they love to quote, like, The Matrix, even though The Matrix was meant to be, like, a, piece of, like, trans literature and was literally made by the Wachowski sisters. I mean, at the time, one of them was a guy before they transitioned, but it was still written by a female. But I guess they just never are willing to, like, really comprehend that.
Pride. This is why Rockstar, a company founded by men that at least in 2018 was still mostly run by men, created the magnum opus Red Dead Redemption 2, a game with a manly, well-written main protagonist, Arthur Morgan. If you want to see the seismic shift away from masculine characters, honestly, all you need to do is play a few games from 2006, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Consider how many masculine military games came out in the 2000s. Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, Brothers in Arms, Gears of War, Operation Flashpoint, Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell.
Is this all this guy does, where he's just like, oh, he just talks about old video games and compares them to new ones? Like, is this all he literally does?
I also feel like there's this kind of unholy alliance right now between games journalists, white liberal women at game studios, and the LGBTQ community at game studios. And they all seem to be united around one thing. They actually hate gamers. And who are gamers overwhelmingly? Well, heterosexual dudes.
Bros, this is not you. These are not you. These are just a bunch of frat boys.
Dudes like us, of course. This recent Reddit thread was written by an actual game developer and made me realize this.
These are the guys, like the guys in this picture, these are the guys who would dunk your head in toilets in high school. These are not the buddies. These are not the guys.
Us, of course. This recent Reddit thread was written by an actual game developer and made me realize this. It reads, headline,
Am I allowed to say this? I kinda hate gamers. I'm a professional game designer, and I'm worried that I'm starting to hate gamers. Watching the gaming events on YouTube last month with the chat on was extremely disheartening experience. Every time a character that wasn't a cis-het white man appeared on screen, the chats would fill with messages calling the game woke or complaining about DEI. Every game that wasn't a shooter or a
I like how this example of him being like, look at these fucking evil game developers, these evil game designers. Look how bad they are. And it's this guy being like this person being like, man, I really feel like I'm just starting to get this resentment towards gamers because they're just being weirdos. Like, this isn't justifying your behavior. They're just saying like, hey, gamers are being weird, and it's causing us not to be a fan of them. Like this, and it's true. Like, yeah, gaming discourse sucks because of fucking dumbasses like this. We're just gonna move on. I just want to get to the Saints Row part of it, honestly.
Saints Row spent 10 years building up characters and building up a very distinctive and edgy and male sense of humor. It's the kind of stuff you and the guys would laugh at. Some of the recurring characters in Saints Row are Johnny Gat, Julie. No,
it's stuff that like 13-year-old boys would laugh at. And here's the thing. I am a fan of the Saints Row franchise, but it is one of those things where it's like, I'm a fan of it because I grew up on it. Because yes, it's essentially made for like 13-year-old like edgy boys. And while, a lot of that stuff now, I look back at it being like, yeah, this didn't age well. It still has a soft spot for me, but I am interested into seeing what this guy has to say about it, because this is less of like, we'll just get into it.
Julius, Aisha, Shondi, and several others. In these games, the men are men and the women are women. Johnny is
No, I mean Pierce isn't exactly like a manly man.
edgy and hilarious and always has a hot chick on his arm.
Wait, did he say that about Johnny?
In these games, the men are men and the women are women. Johnny is edgy and hilarious and always has a hot chick on his arm.
I mean, the first part is true, but no, he's not exactly a ladies' man. He has a girlfriend in the first 2 games. She gets murdered in the second. He dies, in quotations, in the third one, and then gets brought back. And the only romance that he has, or any attraction he has after that, is when you get to hook up with him in the 4th one. And you can be a guy or a girl in that sense. So yeah, Johnny Gat, in a way, can be gay.
The humor is crude and hilarious, and the Saints are always getting into trouble. So what went wrong with the reboot? Well, the woke 2022 reboot thought it was a good idea to kill off every single character from the old Saints Row games, and I guess...
I mean, no, they didn't do that in the reboot. They did that in the 4th game. So for those of you who don't know, Saints Row, when it started, was essentially just a GTA clone. And it's a big reason why it never took off. Like, the big Saints Row is not like a cornerstone in gaming, in like the gaming community. It really isn't. And that's the thing, I've always been a fan of it, but even I'll admit, it's not like a big franchise at all. It really isn't. It's always just been like a GTA clone. Everyone who's ever saw it was just like, okay, this is obviously just GTA, but with other stuff like gang warfare, shit like that. That was like the main focus on the first 2 games. But then when the third one came out, they were trying to create more of a comedy aesthetic with it, but they were never able to get out of the shadow of being a GTA clone. And then with the 4th one, they just threw everything at the wall. They tried to make it it was essentially just a parody on a bunch of stuff of the Matrix and shit like that, Independence Day. They were just throwing a bunch of shit into there. But at the end of it, in regards to one of the DLC, the universe literally starts over. They literally restart the universe, and then they tried to make a sequel game to that they didn't say was actually a sequel to Saints Row, and that's kind of why it failed. I just don't think anyone would have bought it regardless. I didn't even play it. Agents of Mayhem. But they tried to reboot it, try to relaunch it, and I just think it didn't work because nobody gives a fuck about Saints Row, honestly. Even me, who's been a fan of Saints Row for a long time, I didn't think this was gonna be a big game that was gonna come out. I didn't play it either. I wasn't really that interested because it didn't have any of the aspects that I did like about Saints Row. At least I liked Saints Row because I did like the character interactions. And if you're not gonna bring any of those characters back, then I didn't really care. I was mostly waiting to see, the gameplay from someone else, and then watch it, and then maybe see if I wanted to get it. But it just didn't look that good. And I don't think it was because of wokeness or DEI. It just looked like an alright game that I didn't really care to put my money into. But it's very clear that this guy is just using this as a talking point, because he doesn't even understand the story of Saints Row. He doesn't even understand no. The reason why none of these characters from the original games are back is because they literally got rid of the entire universe in the 4th game.
Yes, they thought we would be
This is fake fan shit. Fake gamer shit. Come on, if you're going to talk about this franchise, at least know your shit about it.
cool with that. But don't worry, all of the beloved characters you've come to know and love have been replaced with tokenistic characters from a literal seminar on diversity. You've got the gay Asian man, the girl boss lesbian, another girl boss lesbian, and the gay black guy. The LGBTQ mafia didn't just kill Saints Row, they crucified it on a rainbow.
No, it was already dead. There's a reason why they haven't made a game since the early 2010s. This was probably just an IP that they realized they had, and they were just trying to squeeze some shit out of it. The franchise was already dead. There's a reason they didn't make a game after the 4th one. It's because it probably, I don't know about the whole background about like the Saints Row franchise, but I could bet that they just probably weren't raking in enough dollars to, succeed outside of like what GTA was doing. So that's why they just gave up. I don't know. Like there's a reason why I feel like the fourth game honestly feels like a mess, where it just feels like this whole thing of like it's the Matrix and it's Independence Day and it's like 30 Hulk down, whatever the fuck that military movie was that they used in the opening, is because like they're just throwing shit at the wall, hoping it sticks, and it just didn't. Like yeah, I like the franchise, but I understand why it didn't take off. And they haven't, and again, they haven't made a game since like the early 2010s. So saying like, oh, this killed the franchise, it was already dead. It was already buried. I was surprised they even did a reboot. And again, I think it's just because they noticed they had this IP. They were hoping they could get some, mileage out of it. And obviously that didn't work, so they just shut it all down. But yeah, like saying that the reboot killed the franchise, that's it's like killing someone years ago, bringing them back to life, like a decade afterwards, and killing them again and being like, okay, now they're dead. Like, no, they've already been dead.
Flag. And this is what you get, guys. This is what you fuckers get for
Congratulations, everyone lost their jobs and Volition closed down. Again, just blame it on the devs. Like the same people he's saying are at fault for this game being bad are the same people who lost their jobs. So you're essentially just making fun of the victims of this situation anyways. Like, who do you think the devs are? The devs are Volition, and they had to close down. And I bet it wasn't even their fault. Again, this is just, gaming companies just being like, hey, developers, make us a game, make it by this time frame. We're giving you this, like the small time frame that we have, and just churn out a game. It's just so stupid. It's someone who obviously doesn't even understand the basics of what this industry does, or the franchises that he's even talking about. Like, this is just grifter shit. But it's honestly just kind of funny just hear him talk about, how everything is gay and it needs to be more manly, and, talking about being grabbed by the balls. Like, dude.
supporting these people. They turn out shitty games that aren't funny, that aren't cool, that aren't masculine. So stop hiring these people. Game developers need to stop putting gay stuff in games, and they need to fire every liberal white woman if they want us to ever buy a game again. Because I'm serious, we are done with this shit. We're not buying these games. Like, Phil Spencer is out here complaining about how people aren't spending as much money on games anymore. I guarantee if you give us hetero dudes hot chicks in games again in mainland.
Oh my god, using Duke Nukem. Isn't this from like Duke Nukem Forever? A game that literally failed because nobody gave a shit about it, that came out in the early 2000s? Like, imagine using Duke Nukem Forever as like a success, like as an example of a successful game. Like, nobody gives a fuck about Duke Nukem Forever. It literally failed on release because it came out so far after Duke Nukem, which was even a niche, like, sort of property to begin with, because it was just a parody on Doom or whatever. Imagine using that as an example of a successful game. It's just like fucking, this guy is just a complete dumbass. Like, I don't know how anybody could watch this and take this guy seriously, unless you're also just a big dumbass as well. But this is all I really gotta say on this. I don't know. It's just like unserious shit. It's just a bunch of like the gaming grifter shit that is just easy to churn out, and that's why they do it, because they don't actually have to think or put any thought into it. But I just wanted to, watch a bit of it. Also, just talk about Saints Row for a bit, because again, I've been a big Saints Row fan, but even I admit that it's not like a giant franchise, and that like people saying that the reboot is the reason why it died. It's just like, it's just projecting. It's just, you're not willing to admit that Saints Row was arguably never like a great game. Like, again, I had fun of it. I had fun with it growing up, and I'll go back to it every now and again just to have like some sort of nostalgia. But yeah, they're not game of the year at all. They're not like the best games of all time. They're fun games, but like that franchise has been dead for a long time. But yeah, that's all I really gotta say about that.